Alrighty, this is not the video that I really wanted to make, and, well, I guess the best thing to do is to talk about why is it not allowing me to go back? There we go. There we go. For some reason, my zooms were not working. I pressed my zoom over and over again, and it just would not work, but here we are. Now it's working again. Anyway, guys, we need to talk about Florida and the Marcy Rankton protest. I'm going to give you all a timeline of events that happened, and maybe you'll see kind of what all happened while we were there. Progress only, thank you very much for the raid. I appreciate it. Now, since I was in Florida, we're going to go ahead and play some funny haha B-roll footage of, you know, the scene outside the Tallahassee courthouse. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is this empty? Suris, weren't you filming a protest? Let's talk. Let's talk. So, let's catch everybody up to date from the beginning. Marcy Rankton is the woman who got arrested in the Tallahassee courthouse for having the audacity to try to wash her hands as a woman in the restroom there. Now, of course, she is a trans woman, and there are laws against trans women being able to be in bathrooms that are supposed to be designated for women. So she is a woman who got in trouble for being a woman in a place where women are supposed to be. Yeah! Okay, cool. So, on the 11th of last month, the arraignment for Marcy Rankton began. The arraignment is where you find out what you are being convicted of, what charges are being levied against you. Cool. So, I saw on Mobilize that there was a protest that would be happening there, and it was a cause that I believed in, and it wasn't so far away. Also, Progress Only, thank you so much for the raid. So I got there for the arraignment, and I was there late for the arraignment because I got there late, but the protest was slated to be from like 11 o'clock all the way till 5 o'clock. Now, a grand total of 3 people showed up for the protest, and that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if one of those people wasn't me. A 4th person ended up showing up well after the, quote, protest ended up ending. Now, I've talked about this in a previous video, but I do need to talk about this to give perspective for what happened. So, we have not enough people to actually have a protest, and we didn't end up making it inside the courthouse during the arraignment proceedings. So, went home defeated and decided, well, unfortunately, that means that I need to take a lesson from this and learn from my failures. My failure here is not realizing that I accidentally became a protest organizer instead of a protest store or a person filming a protest. I just kind of got a, what was it Squid Tips called it? A battlefield promotion? It doesn't feel like that, really. It feels more like a failure, but the thing with failure is that you are supposed to learn from them. You are supposed to figure out what caused the failure and how to avoid that happening again in the future. So, what could I learn from this failure? The first thing that I realized is that I have an audience that, while I love and adore and do literally allow me to do what many people would consider a dream job, this audience is not large enough for me to have what would be considered a very, very healthy and stable living arrangement, and that's fine. That's no fault of anybody. But this audience is also spread out across the entire world. That's the part that's more relevant here. Now, being spread apart the entire world means that if I make a video saying we need to all be at a place, only the people who can make it to that place will be there. And I basically said that this is a thing that should be happening, and there was a mobilized thing about it, you know, a week before the event, which isn't a lot of time for people to plan. But then I figured this next time we would have it. We would get in contact with a large organization, and that organization would be able to help us out a ton. Well, we got in contact with a large organization. And, well, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, specifically. I do not think that that would be appropriate. Not in this video. I have said the name of this organization on stream before, but I don't think that it's going to be very appropriate to say it here in the recorded video, because it's not going to send the message that I'm looking for. But we got in contact with this large organization that said that they were very, very good at protests. They knew what they were doing in regards to all this. And you know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the notes that I took about that conversation. Because I knew that my audience was not large enough and was not concentrated enough in the area that it needed to be in order to pull off something like a big protest, regardless of how passionately I felt about this system, like about what needed to be done. So, here's the notes that I took from the end of that conversation. People would be wearing pink shirts if they were in the courtroom. This was a way to show that you were giving support for Marcy in the courtroom. There would be protesters outside the courthouse and a slew of speakers who would be there to talk about trans rights and the rights of people in the state of Florida. This particular organization is good at what they're doing. That is an actual note that I took. Then we talked about the individual things that needed to happen, like the things that this protest needed to motivate. One was stopping the Marcy Rankton case in its state of origin, making sure that a media frenzy would bring so much visibility to not only Marcy Rankton and this whole thing, but to show how corrupt the prison system could be for trans women, such that we would be able to prevent something like this from happening in the future. A way to control the narrative about how the state treats trans women in Florida. The goal was to make sure that the news stations in the local area would have to pay attention to this case, and to do that you have to give them something to cover. Now, this strategy usually requires you to reach out to the news stations themselves and let them know that there will be a protest at a place and what the protest is going to be about, and to make sure that all the particulars are squared away. This would be a way to make sure that the news would cover the support of the trans woman, not necessarily the particulars of the case itself. After all, the goal in its entirety would be to focus this on trans rights, not the pedantic shit that a bunch of lawyers can get into when they're flinging poo at one another. Okay. Now, getting out the press release for this would be a way to avoid a lot of red tape and bureaucracy in this particular ordeal, because we would be operating effectively outside of those parameters. Now, the goal that this organization set out was to have 30 people outside the courthouse. 30 people because that would be an amount of people that the police would be able to ignore. Larger groups may be safer for the people in attendance, but there is a higher chance of things going wrong the more people you bring out there, and a higher chance of people getting arrested. Their view of protest is something that can go off without a hitch. This is not my view of protest. My view of protests is that they are largely meant for bringing a group of people who have a shared grievance to come together in that shared grievance as a step one towards other political action. The protest itself, if it can serve to stir up the media into a frenzy, can then be a spring-off point for people who were otherwise uninformed. Now, you don't get this type of behavior with a small protest. You get this kind of behavior with a large protest. Very, very different. But, unfortunately, that point of disagreement, it happened, but it didn't matter, really, right? We all agreed on the message that everybody deserved dignity when using the restroom, and we should not be doing gender checks or genital checks at fucking restrooms. Nobody should be harassed when trying to take a piss or wash their hands. And that was the message we were going to try to stick to with signage. That was the message we were going to try to stick to with the media, and the message that would be trying to stick to otherwise. This was something that I had a lot of confidence in. A lot of confidence. And I know that this is about to loop, so we're going to re-loop that for fun. So, as we get closer to the event, this organization asks that we have a follow-up meeting, and this meeting should include Marcy herself, not just me and the media rep who were going to be coming to bat for her. Okay, sure, why not? That sounds perfectly reasonable. And then time zones happened. I'm not exactly sure how they happened in this case. I was informed after the fact that they happened, but a meeting that I was supposed to be present to, and the media rep was supposed to be present to, we were not present to. It was just Marcy and the organization. Now, I was told that everything was still going to be happening as we expected, and that was fine. Cool. Fast forward another few weeks. I asked my chat to fund the way for me to go to Florida in order to record these proceedings. I wanted to either be in there to give a, live demonstration of what was going on in the courtroom itself, or film the protest to get more of my audience, okay with the idea of putting their boots on the ground and getting out there. Okay. This was the plan. And unfortunately, that plan did not go off without a hitch. Most plans don't, but I digress. The first inclination that something was wrong was that a week before the event, I decided to check the big list of protests and mobilize. I checked the local versions. They are, region locked. Or not region locked, but you can filter by region. I checked the local regions in Florida to see if the Marcy Rankton protest was listed. I figured a large enough organization would be putting this stuff on the big list of protests and on Mobilize. After all, when my friend K-Fox put up everything onto Mobilize the last time, she did this as a singular individual. So, I noticed that there was nothing. I said, that's weird. Well, maybe the news is talking about it. They did say that they would get the news involved. Let's go see if that was handled. Just take a guess at how that worked out. Stygander, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. But just take a guess. Because if you say there was not even a whisper in the news whatsoever about what was happening, about the pretrial happening, where an attempt to get the case dismissed because this is the most stupid thing on the planet, telling somebody they shouldn't be allowed to piss. Not a single word in the news. Nothing. Now, this could be for a couple of reasons. Either this organization dropped the ball, and in so doing, did not give any information to the media for them to work with. After all, they have to know what to work with, right? Then, the other option is that, well, they did everything they could as an organization, and the media largely ignored them in favor of other stories. That happens a lot, too. Okay. There's a lot of things that could happen. But since nothing was there, I checked with the media rep to see if they had heard any follow-up from the people in charge. She had not. Okay. Give me the phone number of one of the people we were in the meeting with so that I can talk to them directly. So I did. I sent a message, tried to get in contact with this person, did not receive a response, was effectively completely ghosted. Okay, I thought, that's a bit of a red flag, but maybe this person's busy. Surely that's what's going on. So the time comes. My audience has fully funded the trip to Florida. I hop in my car and immediately drive my way down to Florida. Now, I will say that in all of my frustrations, I was worried. I was very, very worried. But as far as I was concerned, my audience had funded my way here, and I had a job to do, and I was going to do it. Now, you'll notice that in this whole video, there is nobody. There's not a single soul. So let's tell you about what happened the day of the pretrial. I get into Tallahassee the night before, and then I wake up, and I am ready. I am ready to get out there and do my best, either from outside or inside. So, I park in a parking garage, I bring all my recording equipment in front of the Tallahassee courthouse, and I set up. There's 3 people waiting there. Okay, there's a couple people here early, that's great. One of them I recognized from the original protest, and another 2 I did not recognize. I found out that these 2 were DSA members who came with this initial person. That's not a good sign. Now, technically it's a good sign, people in the DSA coming out, doing protests, and doing so together. That's good. What's not good is if they're the only people there, that's effectively one person coming. And even more scary, it's only one person coming from my behest. Ryu says, why would you willingly go to Florida? Rewind the video. Ye fucks. So, okay. Maybe enough people will get here for the protest. Surely they will. After all, this organization is large, this is their bread and butter, and they told me they would, in no uncertain terms. We get a little further into the day. I had got there at 7 in the morning, and we hit 8 in the morning. In that time, one other person came. Huh. That's funny. This is also somebody I recognize from the last time this happened. So this is yet another person who came at my behest. 2 people who came at my behest, and 2 people who came because they were in the same organization as one of the people who came at my behest. That sounds a whole lot like everybody here is somebody who I brought here. And while that is a incredibly proud moment for me, seeing members of my audience getting out there and doing what they can, that shit is insane. It is insane. Itthuna says, I got my times mixed up and showed up too early, then too late. Oh, were you in Florida as well when this was all going down? If so, I apologize. So, 8 o'clock rolls around, and we know that Marcy Rankton is going to have her pretrial at 8:30. Unfortunately, we had to use her dead name in order to move through the legal system, because that's just how it fucking works, I guess. But we said, okay, if there's not enough of us here to do a protest, then instead what we'll do is we'll go inside. We'll support from inside the trial room. That's what we'll do. So all of us gathered up all of our things. I ended my stream, where I was trying to film a protest I thought was going to be happening. And we all make our way inside the courthouse, go through all the security checks, and make our way into the room where the pretrial is going to happen. During the pretrial, the defense brings up the case, or brings up the point that the prosecution has not actually submitted any of their fucking paperwork. They also correct the name on the record, or try to correct the name on the record, saying, hey, I am here representing Marcy Rankton. The name on the paperwork is X, but I am representing Y. Same person, either way. So the prosecution hasn't filed anything. apparently, which should be a reason for dismissal. But then the prosecution gets up and says, nope, we filed everything last night. Okay, sure, why not? Why not? So then, the trial is pushed forward to July 14th. So, I may be in Florida again on July 14th. Because, you know, if when July 14th comes along, my house repairs are done, and my car's check engine light is no longer a check engine light that's on, then I can make it there again. If my audience is so willing to help me get out there, you know, again. So, as we are walking out of the courtroom, I say, okay, maybe the organization has gotten the protest started out there. We've certainly spent some time in the courtroom itself. We've certainly spent some time here. Perchance, perhaps, maybe, there is a chance that they have been doing their stuff and there will be a contingent of people outside this courthouse. There was not a single person on that street when we got out there. The street looked about the same as it does in this footage. This footage is taken from my stream. So what fucking lesson are you to take from this? Well, there's a couple. Lesson number one, large hierarchical organizations can and will let you down. I thought that my problem was that I was not working with a local group that had the resources and manpower to get people out there. So I got in contact with the help of the media representative with a local group that had the resources and manpower to do this. And instead we got abandoned. Now, the message that I get from that is that one of these large groups is effectively going to abandon people on trans rights issues after telling them that they're not going to do that. That's the message that I got out of this. And it just solidified more and more the power we should be wielding. Not top down, but bottom up. The organization that did send people was the DSA from multiple cities away. It didn't send a lot of people because their DSA doesn't have a lot of people. But from multiple cities away, people still came from the DSA. But people who were able to organize and do the bare minimum and do what they said they were going to do in the city itself chose not to show up, not to show out, not to get in contact with the media like they said they would, not to send out anything for protesters like they said they would. I've worked with a similar organization in Georgia, and that organization has sent out emails when we need to do things like go lobby. So I thought maybe, last chance, they sent out emails to people telling them to be out at the courthouse. Nobody was there. When I tell you that, not as a fucking content creator, but as a person who believes in people's inalienable rights, it feels like a personal failure of mine that none of this happened the way that I thought it was going to happen or should happen. I am effectively batting 0 for 2 on this, in the same location with court hearings about the same person. The first time, I thought the lesson that I needed to learn was to get more involved with the local organizations, but then those local organizations also failed. So, what lesson am I supposed to take from this one? The lesson that I've taken from it, like I said, is that we need to be investing more in bottom-up organizations that ignore current established power. Because those top-down organizations are spending more and more time making stories for themselves and picking battles that only because they know they can win them, as opposed to trying to actually be a bulwark for people who need it. That's the lesson that I got out of this. But if there's a different lesson that you got out of this, then let me know in the comments section below. I have to do the shill for the algorithm somehow. This is probably the best way to do it in the first place. If my audience is so willing for me to go and try to bat a third time and get more people out there for a protest, then I am willing to go. If y'all are willing to fund me going down there just to be present for the trial, then I am willing to go. But as of right now, I don't know how much good I'm doing. As of right now, I don't know what progress I am making. I don't know what to actually do here. And this is where I have to talk as a content creator, because as a content creator, I feel like there are some people who look to me as if I'm the person who knows what the fuck I'm doing, as if I'm the person who knows where to go and how to handle things. But oftentimes I'm working with very little information, and I'm taking leap of faith after leap of faith after leap of faith after leap of faith. And if something happens in my favor, then I will gush the hell about it. History has this really nasty habit of looking only at the times that those leap of faiths pay off, and they don't really recognize all of the mountains of failure that are required to get to a point where one of those leap of faiths pay off. I will continue to take as many leap of faiths as I have to take for things to pay off. I am prepared to fail over and over and over again. But I do have to be honest that a failure has happened, and a failure has happened twice. And it has hit my morale. But I'm not going to let it hit me for very long. Let me know what y'all think in the comments section below. But I wanted to report on everything that happened there. And this is what I got. So, thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting me. In victories and in failures. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press, though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.